Hey, Zach Grosser here. I'm the founder and managing director of Zacht Studios, the presentation design agency. We are based in Amsterdam and have team members in Canada. At Zacht Studios, we have a team meeting every week. Once a month, that team meeting's topic is around education. So we either bring in a guest lecturer or one of the members of our team teaches the rest of the team something. So a couple weeks ago, we did a Google Slides tips just for our team, just to get a sense for some of the more intricacies and pro tips that we use. And so we wanted to share that with you on presentation.design. So here is our team meeting. It's largely unedited, just cut out a little bit. It's just the members of our team. It wasn't originally recorded with the intention of sharing it outside our team. So, the quality is what our team meetings are like. All the background noise, the echo, the video quality is sort of what you'd expect from a recorded team meeting. So this wasn't a produced video, but I thought there were some really valuable things in there that we wanted to share with you, and more to come. There will be other videos on these topics. Maybe we'll break down this video into more specific things. But what you can do to help us and hopefully benefit you is let us know what we missed that you want to know more about. If there's an area that we didn't cover about Google Slides that you want to know more about, or if you'd like to see the same thing about a different software, presentation software, let us know. You can email us. You can reach out on Twitter as well, at Designing Slides. And let us know what you'd like to hear more of, or if there were questions about Google Slides that we can help you answer. We also offer some resources on the site, presentation.design, for you, and there's some more Google Slides content as well. So good luck, and let us know what you think. All right, I am going to do my Google Slides pro tips.
Yes.
I think I made a list of stuff to go through, and then we'll do like questions, like what do you want to know? What do you want to? Does that sound good?
I love it.
But feel free to interrupt me at any point if it doesn't make sense. And then, Chi, remind me what kind of computer you use.
MacBook.
Use a MacBook. Okay. If I say control, I mean command for you, because I use a Chromebook and don't know what uses a Windows computer. I actually don't. Yeah, the keyboard shortcuts are going to be slightly different for all of us, but I'll figure it out. Okay.
Such a versatile team.
Masterclass
starting now. Okay, so Chi, can you see Google?
Sure can.
Okay, we're gonna start. So Google Slides pro tips. So the first one is you can go to slides.new and it creates a blank new presentation.
I did not even know.
This works for, I think it's docs.new. I can't remember if it's sheet or sheets.new, but Google owns the .new domain, and so you can do that. So when I get in a blank presentation, and I like to start a blank presentation when we start working with like a client, even if they've got an existing file, I like to start fresh, and I'll sort of walk through the reasons why. But I guess the first thing that you should do is name it. And if you, I like to just go up here and like name it. If you name the title slide, like if you just put in a title, it will default. Maybe it's because I clicked in there. It's supposed to default in and change the name of the, it's just supposed to guess the name, but I guess, oh, there it is. You just click on it. So it'll like just try and do it itself. Nice.
Oh, meta.
Okay. So the first thing I do after naming it is I go to page setup, and then I go to custom, and then I switch it to pixels. And I know that's a lot of steps, but it's like really important. And I switch it to 1080p. Now, Google Slides, just like the other presentation tools, does upscale automatically. So even if you set this to like literally 16 pixels by 9 pixels, it would do its best to upscale. But there's some nuance with the font sizes where if you set it to 1920 by 1080 instead of the default, which is half of that, which is actually a quarter of that, you get a little bit more range in your font sizes. And I know we sort of ran into issues with this with PowerPoint, but like I promise it makes your life easier in Google Slides. So that's my first step. I name it, I change the size. As you can see here, like when you start a blank presentation, you get like theme chooser. I don't use any of these. I don't really think any of them are good. And we're going to change this default one, the simple light. So it doesn't really matter what you start with. So I just like close this, right? Okay. So the first thing I do is then I go to the master slides. So you go view, master, you click, do you see how this is the one that's surrounded by the little yellow highlight? This is the slide that we were just on, the title slide. You want to go to the top one that's like outdented, if that's a word. And this is the one you want to change first because this one waterfalls through the rest. So you can see that when this one's selected, all of these have a little yellow highlight. It's because all of these use this one. So this is sort of a master slide. Because if you manipulate this one, it will flow through the rest. For example, if you change the background color of this one to like this bright yellow, it does it for all of them. So like this is the most important slide and there's only one of them. I'm just going to undo that. So the first thing you want to do is rename it, because if I see like simple light in here still, I kind of can tell where this came from. But what I like to do is just like client name 2020. And so that sort of like gives it like, it's customized to them. So you like made it for the client. It's very nice. If they go in here, it's got their name and 2020. So it's like gives a sense of like when this branding happened, because, you know, as we know, like these companies usually do rebrands. So if they're looking at this, they can get a sense of like when that was done. So I click on my first text box. It defaults to Arial. No matter what you do, unfortunately, Google Slides is going to default to Arial when you create a new text frame. But you can at least change some of it here. So we're going to go into font menu. I think both of you know this really well, but there's a bunch of typefaces in here already. And then you can go to more fonts and you can literally add anything in Google Fonts. So for example, like the ones that aren't checked aren't going to show up in that menu, but you can just add them. So we can like add this one and hit OK. And then it's going to be in the menu and it's going to default to that one for a second. So you can add as many as you want in here. This menu does get a little like out of control. So every once in a while I come in here and I'll just remove a couple of those because they're going to show up no matter what client you're working with, because you're using the same Google account. You're going to have this same list, and it's got the typefaces from like 5 of our clients are just sitting in this list right now. So I'm going to pick like pop-ins, and if you come into the font menu and then you hover, you get more weight choices. So I'm going to do like semi-bold, right? The next thing I like to do is set a font size. So you can see it's at 56 right now. It would have been 28 if I hadn't added or changed the page setup to change the font size. And so I like to have that larger variability here because like I want to use 18 and 24 and those are 6 points different. But if you use it the default size, you know, you're going to get, that's like using, I don't know, 16 and 18. It's such a smaller range, and I like to have more range so that I'm not trying to do half pixel sizes or half point sizes for my typeface. So let's, you know, this is a little arbitrary. I like start in here and I start like just picking some sizes before we get any content in. As you know, you always want to like base your design choices off the content. So it's a little hard to do this without content, but you know, I'll just like make some guesses here. Let's do 24 for the body for now, and then 36 for the title. And then we'll see, like, as we add titles, this might be too big or too small. Same with the body text. And one thing that you'll notice is I like to use like anything divisible by 8. So I like to use an 8-point system. We can talk about that in like other types of design other than slide design. If we're working in Figma, I love to do everything on like a base 8. So it's all divisible by 8. So I do that here with my type choices. And then you can like, you know, break that down to 4 if you need to, if you need a little bit more like granular control. But I like to try and keep all my font sizes like divisible by the same number so that there's some like system built in. It's just like using like rem and m if you're like designing for the web. So change my typeface, and then there's a couple things that I want to do. I like to start with colors after I choose type. So if you click the colors menu here, you get your theme colors. Now this is different than the color palette that you see when you're outside of the master slides. But if you leave the master slides right now, and you can leave the master slides just by clicking the slide in the deck, the theme color panel stays here. So you can actually manipulate this while you're on your slides, not just in the master view, which is pretty nice. But so we're here. You get, this is how many colors you get, and all of them except the link one are exposed to your client and to yourself in the theme, which I'll show you in a second. But so you've got, I always keep the first two as like your black and your white. And I say your because like sometimes you do slightly off black or slightly off white. But I like to keep those, you know, a little separate. And then I like to use this text and background 3 as my main color. And when we start creating shapes, you'll see why that's important. But so you come in here, let's say we want to use like a slight like off black, maybe like there. That's good. You can't really tell, but this actually changed already because it's using that theme color. So here's that theme palette that we're looking at here. That's going to show up in all the color pick menus for this document. So this actually changed a little bit as we manipulated it here. I'm going to change our white too. Maybe let's do this presentation just like a little yellowy. It's like our background, right? So that's going to change there. So you can kind of see the background slide changed color a little bit. And then we're going to set our brand colors. So let's say this, like every other company, has like a primary blue color. If you're working off of a company's brand palette, this is the first thing I'll do. I'll take their brand guidelines and I'll come in here and just paste in all the hex codes. So let's say they've got like a secondary color. I'm just making these up right now because we're doing a fictitious client. Maybe they've got some brighter colors. If they don't have any more colors than this, what I like to do is take these last couple and I just set them at a couple gray values so that I've got some gray to play with as well. And then maybe because we changed our text and background 2 to an off-white, maybe I'll just put a white here just so we can use that later. And then this one, the link one, usually I'll make this. So their brand color is this blue. I will make the link color the same color, and you can have multiple of the same color in this menu. So you could do all of these the same color if you wanted. So I make the link color usually like their brand primary or their secondary color, just so that when they do hyperlinks that they drop to this color. But as you come into this menu, you don't see that link color. It's not visible here. It's just when you hyperlink something, it defaults to a color. And I think the teal that comes with Google Slides as the default is really ugly. So
I have a question.
yeah.
So you know how when you get sent brand guidelines and they have all the colors out and it's easy to copy and paste the hex in, but then have you ever found Slides has the ability to color pick like directly from, say, like a PDF on the side, or have you like installed an extension where you can color pick directly?
Yeah, so there is no color picking Google Slides. I use an extension to grab colors. I was showing Donna, so let's say we're on like a website, actually, since we're recording this. So let's say you're on a website and you want to use this color. I use CSS Peeper. It's a little buggy, but it's like done well enough by me. So it like pops up like some basics. So like it's like Poppins is the headline font, and then you can go into colors and download the images on the page. So I like CSS Peeper. If you're on Mac, there's one called I'll have to grab the name. I use it on my Mac. That gives you it's a contrast checker, and it gives you an eyedropper so you can eyedrop things on your slide, on your page, anywhere on your computer, and then it holds them up in your menu bar. And so I will get the name of that one for you.
Ah, cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to change our body text a little bit, and then let's see, we got colors. Okay, yeah. Before we dive too much into this layout that we're looking at, let's look at the other layouts. So these are the default ones, and I don't like all of them. So you can delete them, right? And then your client doesn't see them and isn't exposed to them either. I also think this is sometimes like too many choices for some clients, and some of it are not the right choices, in my opinion. So first off, I like to decide, are we using page numbers or not? Because if you're using page numbers, they can be a little fiddly in Google Slides, because you set them here on the master slide, the master slide, and then sometimes you have to make changes on each individual layout as well. So it's just important to like figure out up front, like, are we using them? Is this in the right spot? The default is like way too big, so we're gonna like bring that down a little bit. I'm gonna make it maybe medium, and then I like to make these a little bit lighter, so we can just like pull that back a little bit. And we'll talk about grids in a second, where that could line up. But so you kind of have to decide, like, do you want to use page numbers or not? Let's say yes. And then what are these layouts do we want? So for title slides, I kind of like, most of the time, you're only creating like one title slide, right? So sometimes that I look at a little bit more custom work. So I like to delete this one. And if you go to delete one and it's already being used on a slide, you can't, right? Like it's being used already. So you have to create a different slide or change this layout. So you could come in here and create a different slide of a different layout, or you can just change the layout of this one. And then I'm going to go back to my master slides, and then I can just delete this and it's gone. So you can do that with as many as you want. Like, I like some version of this, but I don't like this one, so I just delete it. Same with big number slides. Like, usually I have a little bit more content, so I like get rid of that one. Now this is a blank slide, and it's like pre-labeled blank. I like to delete the page number off. If it's going to be blank, I want it blank. And then this one's the caption slide. I also kind of ditch that one. And what I will do is, let's say we are doing like a footer, right? It's like client name, privileged and confidential. Sorry, I never spelled privilege right, and I was trying to, and that's why I stopped talking. And okay, so that is going to show up on like every one of these slides. So what I like to do is I'll duplicate the blank one, and I will rename it blank with footer. And then on the blank one, I will, okay, I forgot, because it's on the master, it's gonna show up here no matter what. So there's two things you can do. You can delete it from the master and paste it on all of your other slides, because these are still master slides, right? So that's one way to do it. And then you just skip your blank. Or the other version is you leave it on this slide, and then you grab a shape and cover the slide with the same background color. But I wouldn't do that, because then when someone's not in the master slides, they can't change this color anymore. So they can't make it one of their other colors. And so I actually like to do it this way. So the master just doesn't have that footer. And the only disadvantage of that is if you want to change this footer, which we're going to do, you've got to change it on all of them. But okay, so, and then I will share separately, like the version I made for Nextdoor has pretty much all the iterations of layouts that I like to use normally. Actually get rid of that one as well. so we can like go through what this normally looks like in a finished project, but just for sake of learning Google Slides tips, we're not going to make all the layouts now. But as you saw me do with the blank one, if you want to make a new layout, you can just right click here and click new layout, or you can click duplicate layout, and then you can make another one. So, and then you can come here and rename them. Okay. I think for now, that's all of my master slide stuff. Do you have any questions? Let's start there.
No questions for me.
Okay. Actually, one more thing. So for type spacing, if you do it on the master slide, it's gonna make it consistent everywhere. So that is between these two menus right here in the toolbar that shows up when you click on a text box. So one is like the alignment. How is this gonna like live inside this little box? And then two is your like line spacing. I like to come in here and I go to custom spacing. And if it's body text, I either do 1.1 or 1.2. And you're really going to have to play with this with content because it's going to look different with different typefaces. Because different typefaces have different heights outside of just like their X height and their cap height. So you're going to want to like play with this. But 1.1 generally works with most typefaces. And then I like to do a list item spacing. It's the one thing that Pitch doesn't have yet that I really need. 32 is like way too big usually. I like to do 24. I wish this was a percentage the way that this is a percentage, because that's all this is 110% right now. But let's play with that, and once we drop some content in, we'll see. Now the other thing, which we'll do on like an actual slide instead, let's build a slide. So it's like slide title, nice. Okay, so the other thing that's really important is going to this format option. So this is like, I have this open 99% of the time. It's the most important panel. It's pretty much where all the tools are in Google Slides. And then I like to open these disclosure triangles for at least the first three, because I use those the most. And I really think it's important to see the position and the size and rotation all at the same time. So there's a couple things going on here. One, this is the default width, and you're going to notice that throughout it's in inches no matter what you do. Unfortunately, you can't change that with Google Slides. So Google Slides is actually working with inches, points, and pixels all at the same time. And it is confusing, but it's just like the way it is, unfortunately. So for the size of objects and their position, it's always going to be in inches. And at this 1920 by 1080, the slide is 20 inches wide by 11.25 inches tall. So it's really nice to have that round number. If you keep it at that lower resolution, the number is less even. It's 10 by what is that? 673. It's like it's not an even number. So I like to do this so at least you get some like nicer rounder numbers. So first you'll see like the width is a weird number, the height's a weird number. I don't love that. I like some consistency. So I go back to my master slides. I'm going to click on this one and I'm going to set it to like 16 wide. You're going to give it, so there's a little bit of like, you know, you don't want a text line that runs the whole length of your slide. Per like accessibility for dyslexic people, you want to keep like a line at about 60 characters. So even this might be too wide, but it really depends on like your font size. And then my height, I also want like a round number. Like here, I might do like 6.4. Again, we're using a different unit here. This is in inches, but I'm still like trying to keep some consistency. So like this is divisible by 8, or in this instance, 0.8. And then location. So you kind of want to figure out like how far from the edge of your slide you want. An important thing to realize here is that all the text frames have internal padding. So this dimension, this 0.68x, is between the edge of the slide and the edge of this text frame, not the edge of the text. So you can start thinking about like the two of them together. But I like to put these at least round numbers. So the two that I end up using a lot are as like a 0.72 or a 0.8 or even just like a round 1. And it, again, is really going to depend on like what content you have, what's the brand going for, are you trying to like create this like sense of like space. So for now, we'll just do like that. And then let's just try a 3. We'll have like a nice like open layout. So all of these 4 numbers I have are pretty neat. And they're ones I can memorize because I'm going to use them for other things. If I'm putting like an image or a graph in, I'll want some consistency. So, and then I'm going to come here. I like to limit my titles to, something similar where they'll wrap before they get all the way to the end of the slide. And then I'm just going to keep this like a little smaller. And for this one, we'll just try 1, 1 and see how that looks. So far, so good. Lots of white space. Maybe there's room up here for like a breadcrumb, or like a privileged and confidential footer could go up here, or maybe the brand logo. We can figure that out later. And then this is the padding I was talking about. So this is the hardest part when you start pulling content from other Google Slides files and start copy pasting the text boxes or bringing whole slides in, is this varies. So I like to come down here and check that at least it doesn't really matter what you're using here, because you're going to change this depending on different circumstances, but that you're consistent. So this is 0.2 all the way around, but I click on this box, also 0.2 all the way around. A lot of the files you get are going to be 0.1 all the way around because they were using a different, page setup. So we can like see how that looks. Okay, and then I'm going to come back here. It looks nice, good. And then, so you can see the vertical like paragraph spacing, and then I'm going to hit Shift Enter, and then this is the second 1, 2, same paragraph. You can see how your specific line spacing is. So paragraph spacing, line spacing. So this looks all right to me. And then we talked about like the alignment. So that is where the footnotes we were talking about come into play. I like to make sure that these are bottom aligned. So if someone comes in here and decides this wants to be 2 lines, that it's going to go up and not down, because you don't want stuff to get too close to the bottom of the page. And then I'm going to like adjust this a little bit, maybe make it line up. We can see here that it's like 10.04. Maybe this is just 10 inches. We can change the height here. So maybe it's like 0.64. And you can start doing math on these, right? So if we're at 11.25 tall, so you could think, okay, if it starts at 10, that gives me 1.25 inches. And then we can use like, oh, we want this to be that. And now you know exactly 0.5 inch is here. So you could start like playing the math a little bit on these because you know the dimensions. And then again, like we'll give some width, but we're not going to give like the full width. And then you can do the same thing with your slide numbers. Although I just did the thing I said don't do, is I'm on this layout and not on my master layout. So I actually want to like go to the master and adjust the page number. They're by default right aligned, which I think is good. And then we can play the math game, or we can just like eyeball this. And then, yeah, this is fine. You just want to make sure your padding is the same, because if they're both bottom aligned, but this has like a bottom of 0.2, and this frame, I'm going to guess has 0.1. So you're going to see they're not going to line up. So come here, and then this is size 16, and this is size 14, right? What slide were we on? So you can decide, do I want to make this 16, or do I want to adjust it so I can keep it smaller, but have it line up on the baseline anyway. Okay, so that's making my master slides. As you can see, there's no page number here. So this is, again, like one of those weird things where Google Slides sometimes figures it out and sometimes doesn't. You can always come to the insert menu here, go slide numbers, and it's going to be like, for the whole presentation, like it doesn't already know that that's what you want, but you just hit apply, and then you're going to get them. The other thing is these are, yes, they're on the master slide, like all of these are, but you can manipulate them still. So this can sometimes get like dragged and like moved out of the way. And so you just want to like, when you're near the end of your project, like visually just click through your slides and make sure they're in the same spot still. Now this you can't click at all. It's on the master slide, but it's not one of the presets. So like when you come in here to create an insert a placeholder, you have 3 choices and these are editable later. So if I put another like body text placeholder here, for example, and then I go back to this slide, like it's here and it's editable and you can move it around. But if you're on the master slides and you go to create text and you just hit text box, that's going to do like what the footer does here, where it's on the slide and it's not editable in the slides. So you have a little bit of variability, but you don't have enough choices here, in my opinion. So sometimes I end up using like the subtitle placeholder multiple times or something like that, but cool. Okay. So we talked about the format options a little bit. I think this is really important when you're manipulating images and shapes too, which I guess let's start talking about. So let's bring in a photo. Great, fantastic. So dropping the photo, sometimes you'll get an error when you go to bring in photos. That's actually why in that folder there's multiple versions of this. So this is 7.5 megabytes and you're going to get an error. And it's based on megapixels. So sometimes it has to do with the file size. Sometimes it's just the size of the image. So I actually just edited in my file browser. I made a duplicate of this at a smaller resolution so I could bring this one in. Okay, so first is cropping. If you just double click, you get your crop tool and you can come in here and just drag these and adjust. And you can like drag this around in here. It's got these nice alignment guides. So you can, you know, oh, that's in center. It's center, cool. But you can also manipulate the crop. So when you're in this edit mode, if you change the width, it changes it as a crop, not the photo, which I really like. You can also lock the aspect ratio here. So if we adjust this, it adjusts the width as well. So you can keep an aspect ratio. The thing about this is if you check it, it's going to stay checked until you uncheck it. So if you like click on an icon and the icon is 32 by 32 and you want to make it 64 by 64, this is already selected. So you just come in here and type 64 in one of these. It will do the other. But, you know, if you forget about this, so let's say I uncheck this, I come to this later and I change the width, it's going to stretch out my photo. Stretch out photos are like the most common thing I see in decks that we get. Not great. There is something I learned, I have to admit this week, is you can hit reset image in the right click menu and it will default it. It will uncrop it and it will unstretch it. And I wish I knew that 4 years ago, but the other thing is, so we've got this image and it's on top of a text box right now. So yes, you could right click and you could go to order and you can send it forward backwards. These are great shortcuts. So on my computer, it's control. I think this is command on Mac. And you could just down arrow and up arrow while holding the controller command key to move stuff around in layers. And then if you hold shift, it's going to go all the way forward and all the way backwards. So I think that's really nice. I use it 100% of the time. While we're talking about the arrow keys, so if you hit like right arrow, up arrow, nudge is on by default. So it's moving 10 pixels at a time whenever you do this. And then you have to hold the shift key if you wanted to do littler bumps. So I'm holding the shift key right now. Or if I just hit the arrows, you're doing 10 at a time. So it's the opposite of most software. Most software, you have to hold shift to get the nudge. Google Slides goes the opposite direction. I think it's really nice because if you're just using your arrow keys to like move stuff around, it's great. And then there are some options here. So the recolor, the only one I ever use is grayscale. And this menu is sometimes not in the same order. So sometimes this is the grayscale, sometimes this is the grayscale. And you just have to like keep clicking until you get the one you want. I've never used any of these other recolors, but they're there if you want. Usually I'm in here with like logos of a company. So you can try and grayscale it. If you get a logo of a company in like white, you can go to the adjustments and you can flip the brightness. So if the logo was white and you want it black, as long as it's a PNG with a transparent background, you can actually just like slide the brightness slider. And then same with transparency. You can just, adjust that. And while we're here, like drop shadow is pretty much the same. These actually have metrics on them. You just can't manipulate them by typing in like 80%. But I like to, once I start using drop shadows in a document, I like memorize. I'm like, okay, in this whole document, they're all like 70, 75, 10, and usually this is like around like 24. And so like I just start memorizing those because you have to set it. It doesn't have any way to save this. So you just have to set it for all the images. Okay, I feel like I have been droning on for too long, but let me just try to get a couple more things and then we'll do questions. So if you have bullet points, first off, you'll notice as soon as you turn on bullet points, it resets your line spacing. It drops the paragraph spacing. So you have to come back in here and turn that back on. And then, it's completely like, it completely wipes it, even if you have it set on your master slide. The default bullet points are pretty awful. So what you used to have to do is go format, bullets, numbering, list options, more bullets. You still have to do that if you want to change the size of them. I just type in bull and you get it. And there's two smaller ones here. This one's like half the size and this one's really tiny. I usually go with this one. So as you can see, the bullets are highlighted. This is the thing that's changed recently. You can change the color of the bullet points. You used to have to have this special characters menu open first to get there. And recently they updated it so you can, if you just click right on the bullet points, you can manipulate them. So as you'll see, like I changed the color of this to this like poop color. If you change the text color, it overrides your bullet point color. So the bullet point color is the thing you want to change last, if that makes sense. And then you can change the spacing here. So this in the text fitting panel, as soon as you're on a line with bullet points, you can start changing the spacing around the bullet. So the left is to the left side of the bullet, and then the by is between the bullet and the text. So we can here, let me select both of these, 0.2, and then hanging, and then like maybe 0.2 again. So you can like start lining up your bullet points to your titles. Okay, I'll just do two real quick things so we have time for questions still, sorry. So add-ons, there's a little add-on marketplace here that's pretty janky and has not been updated in years and years and years for sure. But there's a couple things in here that I like. My favorite one is insert icons for slides. It opens up this sidebar that has two icon sets. One is Font Awesome, which are very inconsistent, but there's like a ton of them. And then the other is the Material Design, which are very consistent, but some of these don't work anymore. So it defaults to this yellow color, and then the background of this menu is always the background of your slide. And so if you're looking for white icons, so let's say you come in here and you're like, I want white icons. If you've got a light background, it's really hard to see this. But if you change the color of your background color of your slide, and then just close this and reopen it, it'll match. So this background's like based on, oh, it doesn't work anymore. So that's the other thing with these is like, they're Oh, here we go. It updated. So I was just going to say they're not maintained very well, but so you can come here and you can go, okay, this is my brand color. And then I like to go, if you hit the custom button, you can copy the hex value. And then you just paste it in here. And then your icons are going to be that blue color. And this is a really bad example because I was stupid and changed this. So yeah, okay, it auto-updated. So you click on this and you give it a second, and 90% of the time it just drops it in. There's some of these material icons that just don't work anymore. And then you can, I'm gonna hold shift and resize this, and now I've got icons. So just create like a couple, and you can start lining them up with each other. They're going to get like a little blue lines when they're the same size. So that's how you can like get things to be the same size. And then you can see like, oh, it's, I don't know, I want these to be 1.25. And then I guess we could talk about charts if you want. If you're playing the slides, you can do live captioning, which is cool. And one unique thing, I think PowerPoint added it recently actually, but used to be a unique thing here. And then, oh, the guides, we were talking about guides. So if you drag out like a ruler here, it's gonna turn on the guides for all the slides. And you'll see that the ruler that I just dragged out on this slide showed up on this slide. And then if I get rid of it by just dragging it off, it drags it for both. And then I can like hide that. But you can go to your master slide and create a grid system here. So let's say that I want to do, we'll just do this really quick and dirty. Like a little grid. Okay, and then if you right click here and edit guides, you can actually set these for exactly what you want. So I want this to be 1 pixels. And so guide 2 is on the right side. As we talked about, the slide is 20 inches wide. So you just go 19. You could even change the colors for these. So sometimes I'll do that for the ones in the middle of the slide, have like a lighter color. And then same here, we do 1, and then 10.25 again. 11.25 is the height of the slide. So, and then we get done. And now these are all exactly 1 inch. So you've got like a nice consistent grid. And then they're going to show up as that red dotted line on our slides. So they're separate from these like rulers that we dragged out here. So I'll use those a lot to help like build structure. I might build like 3 columns as guides and build out a structure that way. And then you can just come in here and hide it. There is a long keyboard shortcut for this, but I don't usually remember it. And if you drag out one of these rulers, you can keep line stuff up way longer than I.
Oh, you're kind of cutting out a bit.
A bit.
Yeah, it's still a little choppy, but I think it's trying to smooth itself back out.
I'm sorry if you missed any of that.
Oh, you're good now. You're good now.
Okay, good. What else do you want to learn or questions that you have?
Zach, that was so thorough. I feel like I don't have any questions. Actually, no, I do have a couple questions.
Yeah.
Okay, remember when you were changing around those bullet colors?
Yeah.
Can you set the bullet color in the master for it to apply always, or no?
So yes and no. As I mentioned, if you change the body text, it changes the bullet point. So let's say we make these all this yellow color. And this is showing you like all of the bullet points for all the indent levels. So as like people indent bullets, the symbol changes. And so you can manipulate those here too. And that's what the levels are. But so let's say we make those yellow, and let's say we just create like a new slide. So yes, but then if they come in and change the body text to this blue, it resets. And it still doesn't fix the paragraph spacing because this isn't a bullet point to start with. So it's not perfect, but yeah, you can set that like on a global scale, is to answer your question, yes.
Nice. How about, you know, like the spacing between paragraphs?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, the paragraph spacing.
Can you do, oh, yeah. Sure.
Did that answer your question?
Sorry, yeah, I was just thinking, but yes, it does answer my question.
Okay. Another thing that used to be broken, but they fixed recently, is if you go less than a whole number in line spacing, so you could do like 0.8 now, and it works correctly. And the larger the font you go, sometimes that's really helpful. So for like that's the 0.8, and that's probably like too tight. But if you get like a larger size, it starts to look right, you know? Like this looks like the right kind of spacing. I mean, it's personal preference and subjective, and it's also like gonna vary depending on the typeface you choose. But sometimes I like that, like going a little bit smaller than 1 in the line spacing.
Oh, yeah, especially for huge text like that.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention. So there's this format menu, right? And that's where you could come in and you could go uppercase. It is not like other tools where it remembers that this text box is uppercase. So if you type a new title, it's not going to be uppercase. This is only after the fact text changing. But you know, you can come in there and do it. And then you sort of got a peek at it when we did the bullet points, but there's this special characters menu, and this has everything. Like I don't have an M dash shortcut on my keyboard, so I'll like come in here and go M dash and get it that way, or you can get your N dashes, boom. And then this also has, where is it? Oh, categories. This has the emoji in here. So you can like grab emoji and like insert them. You're going to see the Google emojis because I'm on a Chromebook. If you're on a Mac, I believe this is like still the Apple ones. And I know like if you go, I think it's Command Spacebar on your Mac, or maybe Control Command Spacebar, you get the emoji menu on a Mac. But like this has like every Unicode thing that you could ever want. So there's a lot in here, and sometimes I don't know, there's like arrows and stuff. So sometimes I'll like get a little text arrow so that if someone's like thing 1, Q2, like that, and then it's like part of the text, and it's like actually a text symbol. And these are going to change a little bit as you change typefaces, but yeah, sometimes it's nice to grab those symbols and they're built in.
Totally. Do you ever find that you need to create custom shapes? Well, like sometimes you do need to create custom shapes in presentations. Do you just tend to take that off into Adobe World, or how good is Google Slides at that?
It depends on the shape, to be honest. I'd say about half the time I just stay right here and can kind of make it work with the tools that I have. But if I want to do any sort of curving lines, I think these are like, this is pretty trash.
Yeah, that one always confuses me.
It's like, it's okay, but I'll open Figma and do some shapes and then bring them in as PNGs. Oh, that's the thing, like Google Slides does not support SVG. So you have to do PNGs. And I would just say like, with your PNGs, just like export them at a higher resolution than you think you need, because like we were talking about upscaling, if someone full screens their presentation on like a high res monitor, the PNGs are going to look like trash.
Right.
This is the example I was talking about. Like the formatting of this page number completely broke. So that's the one thing is like sometimes the page numbers are just like a little finicky. Luckily, you could go to the previous slide and just copy this and then delete this one and paste it. And it will, well, there you go. And it will remember that it's a page number. So it will update as it changes like what page it is. So luckily, like slide numbers will maintain that, but they can be a little finicky.
That's so crazy because it sounds like there's so many things in here. They are the same as PowerPoint down to what they even call it, but even down to bugs. Like I find the page number in PowerPoint also sucks so bad.
Yeah, totally.
1-to-1 sometimes. Oh, interesting. Oh, do you ever use a copy formatting option, or is that available in Google Slides?
I think so. I don't use it that often. Yeah, if you just if you copy and then go to this other slide, if I paste, it's going to be the same. Or if I were like, let's see, I'm going to hit Control-Shift-V and it's going to paste and match formatting.
I'm thinking of a use case, like for instance, if there's a rectangle with a certain shadow you applied, and remember you were saying like I memorize all the figures, but if you can just like copy the formatting and then click on another box and apply the formatting.
I do not believe that is a thing.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. Yeah. No,
Yeah, it seems like it.
It is not. Oh, that's another thing. This is a thing that is, as you were mentioning, like bugs that exist across different tools. One thing here is I created a rectangle. There's no way to round its corners. But if you start with a rounded corner rectangle, you can just square it by dragging that little the little yellow thing. And then if you decide later you want some rounded corners, you still have the ability to do so. And you'll see the default color here is that one from our palette. So you can, as you start to do these theme colors, you can think about what the defaults are gonna like slot into. And when you create a shape in Google Slides, it defaults to giving it a little border color, which I usually drop off. The other thing that's wrong with this is how rounded things scale. So I just hit Control D to duplicate this. And then I'm just gonna hold the Shift key and make this bigger. And it just gets, the corners get rounder and rounder as it scales, instead of like, if let's say this had a metric associated with it, it was like 16, it's not 16 anymore. It's like 64 or whatever. So sometimes you have to like adjust your rounded, and there's no setting for it anywhere. So there's no way to get this consistent unless you're just duplicating these and moving them. Otherwise, it's just eyeballing it and being like, okay, it's about that far away from the corner. Okay, it's about that far away from the corner. Like there's no exact science to the corner rounding.
Gotcha.
The other thing is like charts and tables that we could talk about, but we are out of time. So how interesting is that for either? We could do like a whole lesson on Google Sheets and charts though, to be honest. Maybe that's worth a separate time. Or I can make a Loom video for that.
I feel like I am interested in charts and tables because I feel like that's such a big use case when we make presentations. But yeah, maybe we could do it separately or on a different day.
Yeah, let's do it separately.
I would want to get into Sheets more as well.
Okay, we'll do a whole separate Sheets one then. And then just real quick, if a client wants a GIF in here, no problem. Google Slides does GIFs pretty well. It has the same limitation on file size. So some GIFs you have to like shrink their file size. Videos, so there's two options you have, and neither are ideal. One is you could drop the YouTube link. If you search YouTube, like you could be like, I don't know, if you knew like the name of it, and then you place it, and then you can pick, does it autoplay or not? Does it mute audio? And you can change start and end times, which is nice. It gives it this like stupid shape. Like they all end up being this shape, no matter what the video looks like. So you'll want to, let's say you wanted a full screen one. You'll want to make this the size of the slide. Here, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. And then just drag this so it locks to center. And this will actually play correctly. You can kind of see it in the thumbnail here. If you've got the video file, you need to put it in your Google Drive, and you need to make sure the share settings for it are completely open. So you need to go in here. So pretend this is the video file, and you need to change it to anyone with the link can view. And then you can copy the link, or you can go insert video, Google Drive, and then you can pick the video. And usually it pulls the most recent one. Here, we can just place this. And it's gonna be like just like the YouTube video. And then when you go to play this slide, the unfortunate part is you'll get whatever this thumbnail is that's auto-generated. It's gonna look like that, and it's gonna flash to black, and then it's gonna start the beginning of the video. So it's not a very clean playing experience, but it's fine. And it's just gonna look like a YouTube video, even if it's in your Google Drive.
Thanks, Zach.
Awesome. That
my
was
pleasure.
super useful. How did I survive with Google? Really, like, I think, yeah, there's so many things I didn't use.
So as I